Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Tim and this is Run Tall. If you're brand new here, welcome to the Run Tall family. I'm really glad that you are here and you found us on YouTube. Now, I post running videos every single week. I post them every day. I do a lot of shoe reviews, shoe comparisons, shoe battles, but I post a lot of other videos that are related to running as well, like training and running gear. So if you're into that kind of stuff, consider subscribing to the channel and don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be notified each time that I upload new content. All right, so on today's video, I am going to be talking about the Adizero Boston 12. It's seen a lot of updates, and that's a welcome thing because I liked the Boston 10 okay. It's just an okay daily trainer. They didn't make really any changes to the midsole ride in the Boston 11, so I skipped it because it was just okay. In fact, it was, I don't know, it was much more like a brick to run in. And if you like that kind of thing, I think the Boston 10, Boston 11 was probably right up your alley. Very durable shoe. It just wasn't my favorite to run in. Now they've made quite a few changes, especially to the midsole, but also to the upper as well. So let's just get into it. All right, so it has an engineered mesh upper and it's pretty breathable. It does have a slight plastic feel to it, but that's okay. I didn't have any issues with that. And just so you know, so my experience in these thus far, and this is my first impressions, is I did 8 miles on a treadmill the other day, and then I took them out today for a little bit of hill work, some speed work, that kind of thing. So I ran them up on the pace and run some tempo miles in them. I also did some easy miles in them as well. So I got a pretty good sense of what these shoes can do. So the upper is breathable. I like that. Really no plastic overlays to speak of. You know, you got a little bit here with their logos, but that's somewhat built right into the upper. And then there's really not a whole lot going back on in the heel counter back here. There's a little bit of structure back here, but not a lot going on there. The fit. This is the issue with the upper for me. They do run a bit loose. There seems to be, a bit more material maybe in the midfoot section of the shoe. And the lace enclosure system to me is one of the weaker points along with the tongue. And we'll look at that more here in just a minute. In fact, let's just move on and we'll talk about that right now. So we'll start with the lace enclosure system. This is a bit strange. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the old Pegasus style. So you can see that they kind of have this wrap up here. It starts down, toward the bottom of the footbed, and then it comes up and wraps around into the lace enclosure system, which creates these somewhat elongated loops that you run in your laces through. And if I recall, that was in one of the old Pegasus styles of shoes. I think I've seen this in some of the Hoka shoes as well. And so you do get cinched in okay, and it reduces any kind of pain points that you might have because you basically have this material that starts at the footbed and then the laces draw it in much more around your foot. But it didn't seem to really lock me in. I felt like it was running a little bit loose. And I think part of the reason for that is the way that you have to lace it is once you cross over, you've got these larger loops here. You actually cross over and then you run up the loop and then over and then run up the loop. So I think they just got a little bit too cute with that system there. I think I would have much preferred a more traditional style lace enclosure system than what they have here, but it was okay, just okay. I cinched it down really tight today, and the reason I did that is because on my initial run on the treadmill, I noticed that my heel was quite loose, and I thought, well, today I'm going to fix that, right? So I ran with the runner's knot. I did actually run with the runner's knot on the treadmill as well. But I cinched those laces down. I had my heel, tucked back into that heel pocket about as good as I could get it, and I was cranking on those laces, and still today the heel ran pretty loose. I kind of didn't even feel the material on my heel at all. So it didn't cause me any problems. Let me just say that. So I didn't have any kind of hot spots. I didn't have any kind of rubbing or blistering. So that's a really good thing. So I can live with the loose heel because there are other running shoes where that's not been the case. Where I've got some initial friction on my Achilles, so much so that I had to stop running and put a Band-Aid on it or some mole skin is what I oftentimes use, what I wrap around on my Achilles to help prevent that. But so even though it ran loose, I was okay with it, so I had a little bit of heel lift on it. But frankly, I was doing some hill work today, and I didn't have any issues really going downhill or going uphill. It was just kind of an odd sensation. So I would say to you, if you like to feel your heel locked in and feel the material really gripping that heel around your Achilles, these might not be the best shoe for you. But if that's not a big deal, and as long as it doesn't cause any blistering or hot spots, then I think that these are going to work really well for you. The tongue, as you can see, is not my favorite. Darn it, So this is basically the same style that they have in the Adios Pro 3. And these are a companion, in my opinion, a companion training shoe to the Adios Pro 3. And I'll talk more about that when we get to the ride of the shoes. But you can see that it is super thin. I'm not a fan. So what happens, and the reason I don't like this is it doesn't have so much to do with how thin the tongue is, and it does have a little bit of padding here, so you don't feel the laces cutting across the top of your foot. That's not the issue. The issue is this will roll in on itself when you go to put these on. And so I have to make sure that I loosen up the laces enough that I can get my fingers in there and tuck it in so that it's laying flat across my foot. Otherwise, it does feel a little bit uncomfortable if you have that material rolled up and then you cinch the laces down. It kind of, causes a little bit of a pain point for you. So as long as you take the time and you're willing to basically to unlace the shoe down to about here and then tuck it in, you'll be okay. I just wish that it didn't take quite so long to finesse the shoe to get it to fit well for me. All right, so let's move on and we'll talk about, let's talk about the heel padding and why it's probably running loose. So you can see that they have this bumper style split padding. There's nothing on the Achilles, so it's there's just no padding there at all. The padding rests along the edges here, along the sides of your ankle. So, and I think that's why it feels so much looser back there. But again, not a huge deal for me, honestly. So I was okay with it. It does have this little bit of a I'd call it like this elf tail back here that flips up. And surprisingly, on both the Adios Pro 3 and on these, I found myself needing to use that. And that's basically because of the way that tongue is designed and so on. I kind of got to grab a hold of this and get my foot shoved in there and hold the tongue in place. So it's quite an ordeal, honestly. So, but I do appreciate having that. I don't know. I'd almost rather have just a small loop to grab a hold of, but it works. It works. All right, so let's talk about the midsole. For that, I'm going to switch up the shoes here a little bit. Okay, so they have a pretty good stack height. They have 37 millimeters in the heel. They have 30.5 up into 4-foot, so they have a 6.5 millimeter drop. It's a little bit odd, 6.5, but it works. It's comfortable. They have two different densities of their Light Strike foam. They have their Light Strike Pro foam on the top. Now that's the softer foam that you find in the Adios Pro 3. And then this bottom layer is also Light Strike, but it's Light Strike 2.0. And then embedded between those two foams are some fiberglass energy rods 2.0. So let me flip those over. You can see that. So again, very reminiscent of the Adios Pro 3s and their build and design, just using a little bit different material. Very snappy ride. I absolutely loved running in these shoes. If you love the Adios Pro 3 like I do, I don't love the upper. I love the ride. Let me correct myself. I love the ride of the Adios Pro 3. You're going to love the ride of these, I think. Because it's very reminiscent of that shoe. You have a nice big landing platform up here. Now, I do overpronate, but I'm mid to 4-foot foot strike, so I can get away with running in neutral shoes, and these are a neutral road shoe. Obviously, they're meant for tempo work, daily trainer, super comfortable. Oh, and so let's talk about I guess I skipped right over the weight. Let's talk about the weight a little bit because that does impact the ride of the shoes. Now, for a U.S. men's size 9, which is what I wear, these come in at 9.1 ounces. And I believe that equates to about 258 grams. But I'll put the weights up on screen for you just to double check my math on that. They do feel a little bit heavier on foot. So they could be a little lighter in my opinion for a tempo day shoe, but they're not bad. I really enjoy the ride of these. super smooth. And that's one of the things that I've always loved about the Adios Pro 3. The very first day I ran on them, I think I described it as being buttery smooth, and these are the same type of ride. So kudos to Adidas for making a shoe that is a true companion racing shoe, or to a racing shoe. You know, I think, you know, a lot of companies have moved in that direction, and I think for good reason, because, you know, these are a little less expensive. They're going to be more durable because they have more outsole rubber. They have a bit more dense midsole foam there on the bottom layer, so they're just going to last longer, and you're going to get some more miles out of these. I would not be surprised at all if I can get 400 plus miles out of these shoes. So let's flip them over. Let's take a look at the outsole rubber. They have a ton of the rubber. Both, you got a couple strips in the heel. You got lots of rubber coverage from the midfoot all the way up through to where you toe off. You know, and it's pretty thick. It's you know, in terms of outsole rubber goes. They're using Continental rubber, and you know that has good grip. I always appreciate it when shoe companies use, you know, Continental rubber like this, because it does grip to the road really well. Never had any issues, you know, feeling unsafe even under some wet conditions. So kudos to Adidas for, you know, just building a shoe that I absolutely love to run in. I'm going to be putting a lot more miles in these shoes. It's really smooth. I especially like just landing right at that metatarsal head, flowing through just nice and smoothly, and then those carbon or those energy rods give you that nice little snap or boost off the toe. I absolutely love running in these, and I highly recommend them. You know, that's not something that I say lightly ever in a running shoe review, but I've really enjoyed these. And the biggest difference between this version, I believe, and then the previous version, the 10 and the 11. Number one, this is a pretty clunky shoe in my opinion, but you can see that up in the forefoot, now while they have, you know, their Light Strike Pro foam here, that bottom layer is much more dense. So if I take and try to push on that, you know, it's kind of difficult to do. I mean, I'm really straining there to compress that midsole foam. But let's take a look here. Now, when I use my thumbs and so on and compress that, it's much easier. So it's not like squishy soft, but it's soft enough to give you a nice, comfortable ride. And you can see that Light Strike Pro foam comes down almost all the way to the outsole rubber there up in the forefoot of the shoe. So you have a lot of cushion where you're landing, especially if you're a midfoot lander like I am, or, you know, a forefoot foot striker. You're going to find that Light Strike Pro foam just feels terrific underfoot. The only caveat with these, like I said, the only issues that I've had is, you know, running a little bit loose in the heel, but that's not been a big deal for me. And I'm not a fan of the tongue. I wish that they could fix that. I'm hoping maybe in the Adios Pro 4 that they change that up a bit. But otherwise, highly recommend the Boston 12s. So the Adizero Boston 12s are a green light for me. I would say go ahead and pick up a pair and enjoy the ride. All right, so that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it for you. As always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Run Tall with Tim.